Minister is about to enter the tent. Good morning, sir. Good morning. May I just ask us to remain standing? And if you're not yet standing, please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Just before we go to it, just want to ask everybody, advise you that we're now about to play the national anthem. Seated. The Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Everald Warmington, Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Southwestern, Custos Rotalorum for the Parish of St. Catherine, the Honorable Iselin Golding, CDJP, Mr. Omar Sweeney, Managing Director of the JSIF, and other representatives of JSIF. And of course, Mr. Sweeney has his National Honors CD and PE. Mr. Kirk Brown, Senior Environment Specialist, the World Bank, representing the Country Director of the Caribbean World Bank. Mr. Stephen Chung, Managing Director, Contracts Enterprises Limited, contractors for the project. Ms. Lise Walter Limited, consultant of the project, community members of the Myton Gully area, representatives of the National Works Agency, representatives of the National Water Commission, representatives from the various media houses, including the Jamaica Information Service, residents and curious onlookers and motorists. Gratitude is a must. Gratitude is a must. Prime Minister, I used this road my entire life before there was a highway. And let me tell you why I say gratitude is a must. It was the main link between the west and the east of this island. And when you took this road, particularly if it is raining, all hell broke loose right here, so Myton Gully. Custos, you agree with me? All right. But I also want to tell you something pleasant about the area. Long before there was Fort Clarence, there was fish in Old Harbour town in the glass cases. And when you never buy the fried fish in the glass cases, you're going to Old Harbour Bay, go get some fresh fish. So those are some personal memories I have that makes this moment very important for me, just memorable, and also reminding us, every single one of us, that it is indeed a time to give thanks and say gratitude is a must. I want to just remind everybody, if you look across the road, by the way, you see this wonderful billboard. It tells the story of the cooperation between the government of Jamaica and the World Bank, and of course, the Jamaica, listen to me, you see JSIF, Jamaica Social Investment Fund, put your hands together for JSIF. They have done amazing work over the many years in so many communities. They have made a difference, they have carried the projects through. So I just want to acknowledge that and then move on. Sir, I know you had meetings before you come here. I know you have more, so we're going to move it along quickly. Because you're looking at me and saying, well, Faye, you know, me, I want another meeting, I'll come in. Why should not carry on with the program? No, I'm just teasing you. Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Omar Sweeney, CDPE, Managing Director of Jamaica Social Investment Fund. May I ask you now to bring your opening remarks? And I want you to say before you go, how to do to everybody out there. I see you hug up the Prime Minister and look at most couldn't come in here the way you love him up. But me glad to not let him go so him could come in. So I want to say a special morning to all of you. God bless you all. So, Mr. Sweeney, it's your turn.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. With protocol just established, let me start by saying Most Honourable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, Honourable Errol Warmington, Honourable Custos Rotolorum for the parish, Mr. Brown, Kirk Brown from the World Bank, other distinguished guests present, my own JSIF team, government partners, community members, members of the media, good morning. It's such a great day to be here in the hustle and bustle of Old Harbour. You know, quite a bustling place, and because of the highway, many of us don't get to experience that every single day. And I will tell you, I have a speech here that I don't really need, because this project certainly has occupied my mental space for close to 10 years. For close to 10 years, since 2016, when we started out on the DVRP, aiming to find a way to improve the quality of life across Jamaica in communities where persons were vulnerable to natural hazards. Vulnerable to natural hazards because, ladies and gentlemen, you may or may not know that Jamaica is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to natural disaster. We have hurricanes, we have earthquakes, we have landslides, we have flooding, and the newest one now is drought, right? So when it rains, and when it doesn't rain, it doesn't rain. This area was identified, in particular what's known here as the Big Pond, Myton, Gully area, was identified as a significantly vulnerable area. And the project itself, the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, which the government of Jamaica took on, guided and in collaboration with the World Bank in terms of global technical expertise and finance support. The government took on this project to really find state-of-the-art solutions to some of these vulnerabilities I speak about. And Most Honourable Prime Minister has been on the road with us over the years, opening several of these projects that has improved Jamaica's resilience to natural disaster, that has executed climate adaptation projects, that has really overall reduced the vulnerability of the country. Now, that is to say there's more work to be done, and we will continue to do that work. But here in Big Pond, Myton, Gully, we saw a situation where whenever we would have hurricane season, heavy rainfall, the water in some areas, the engineers will tell us 2.5 meters. I will tell you that is almost 10 feet high after the rainfall. Persons were marooned, persons were trapped, right? And the water could take as long as 6 weeks to subside. I see the residents nodding their heads. They know the situation that existed here. And we struggled, Most Honourable Prime Minister, to find that technical solution working along with the National Works Agency. At the time, Minister Warmington, MP Warmington was the minister, and so he also himself was engaged as a first-hand person who was experiencing the situation here. And what we came up with was really a two-part solution. The first part is that the Big Pond area was sending all the water like if you imagine like a funnel right to this location right here. And so what would happen when your location is blocked, what happens? It backs up. It backs upstream and creates inconvenience. Persons can't go to work, children can't go to school, etc. So the first part of the solution was to expand the capacity of this drain. So what was a single cell culvert is now a 3-cell culvert with the necessary approach and release of the water, along with refurbishment of the earth drains. Now, we completed this project more than a year ago. A little bit around a year ago, we completed the project, which means that the project did work or was completed before burial. It was completed after all the rains that came after burial. And just to say, that inconvenience was removed. I said inconvenience was removed, not that there was no inconvenience. There was some inconvenience, but we will continue the work to continue to solve the problems. But we're really here to mark this occasion today, the necessity of this drain that has now provided security and an improved quality of life for more than 38,000 residents. So we're proud at JSIF to be here to really be a part of the execution of the project. The presence of the Prime Minister and the Member of Parliament here today would also signify the importance, because like I said, this was one of the most vulnerable areas in Jamaica with respect to flooding. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I stand here proud that we've been able to work together on this solution. I want to thank all the partners, NWA, NWC, NEPA, MEG-JC, everybody came together, of course the World Bank. We all came together to execute this in conjunction with our contractor and engineer recognized earlier. And so, as you can see, the road, the bridge itself was also executed, and there's no pileup on the road. The traffic is moving smoothly. And so, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney, for the leadership that you provided while this project was underway. And yes, what a benefit it was, and a blessing that it was completed before burial. Mr. Kirk Brown, Senior Environmental Specialist with the World Bank, it is now your turn to put your position and that of the World Bank to the gathering here. Could you welcome Mr. Kirk Brown?
Morning, everyone. Y'all don't sound like you had breakfast. Morning. All right. Protocols observed. The Most Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, Honorable Everald Warmington, MP for St. Catherine Southwestern, Honorable Mayor, Worship, Custos Wolfson, IC Holding, who I also know very well, Mr. Chong, the community members, the team from JSIF, NWA, National Works Agency, the National Water Commission, welcome. I bring you greetings from the World Bank office here in Jamaica. And this is not the first project we have worked with the government of Jamaica on. We're always pleased to work with the government of Jamaica first and foremost. And I would say by extension, JSIF. As the MC pointed out, JSIF has done and continues to do excellent work across the country. And I must confess that a lot of the projects that we work with JSIF as the implementers, they've certainly done most projects on time. We rarely have any issues, and I must say that's something that we need to commend, because as a local entity managing international financed projects, it adds credibility to our capability locally. So you should give Mr. Sweeney and the team of JSIF a very big round of applause. I won't be here too long. I just wanted to make two quick points following on from Mr. Sweeney. It's important to note, reference has been made to the bridge. I'm 55. When I was younger, my grandfather is from Old Harbour. He used to have a farm down in Freetown there next to Peter Bunting. I know of this bridge. I know of Old Harbour, and I can say many years ago, coming here, as Faye pointed out, you couldn't pass. You have to wait one car at a time. When rain fall, trouble. And I'm from Mandeville, so I can tell you, you're traveling back and forth, it would have been an issue. It's really great to see that the road work has been improved and people are using it. Most important point, the adaptation measure, which Mr. Sweeney pointed out, is quite simple, but not to dilute the engineer's work, but it actually has transformed the area and will reduce some of the congestion, the flooding. As he said, last point, Beryl happened, but yet people did not necessarily complain. I think sometimes we must give real applause to the works that have been done to see that this change has been made. So, big round of applause again. Thank you so much. And again, from the World Bank side, we look forward to working with the JSIF team and the government of Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Brown. Now, I know that there must be at least one person in this gathering who happy and pleased. Happy and pleased. And I'm going on like him don't realize it's him I talking about. Because this is such an important link in terms of thoroughfare and transportation and people moving with ease. I came here for the first time in a little while last week to a funeral, and when I was coming around the bend, I said to myself, oh gosh, it wasn't a one stop and you got through and I thought, wow. So sir, let me say congratulations to all of the team, and now bring on the Honorable Everald Warmington, Member of Parliament, St. Catherine Southwestern, to bring, but I think I honorably up when I shouldn't have it. Yes, yet me not done. CD, and the most pleased person in this gathering today. Welcome him.
Madam Master Ceremony, Most Honorable Prime Minister Costas, Goulding, Mr. Sweeney, World Bank representative, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As Faye said, I'm most pleased this morning to be here for the opening of the Mighty Gully Bridge. We came from that to this. It's a major improvement. And I must commend JSIF for the effort it has made for the improvement not only in Southwest St. Catherine but in Jamaica. This is the third bridge under this program, the Mighty Gully Big Pond project that they have done. They have done the Tetford by the Muslim temple. They have done the church pen by the cemetery, and this last one here. And I'm grateful. Not very long ago, could I stand up and say I'm proud of JSIF and his work? Because there was a very adversarial relationship between me and JSIF, because I don't think they were looking at this constituency and others the way they should. But I must say that Mr. Sweeney has seen the need to cooperate and work with us. And I'm proud of Mr. Sweeney and the work he has been doing. If you criticize, when there's time to praise, you must be it also. I must give them the praise as such. And this, as it says, part 3 or part 1 of the whole project. The entire thing is from Big Pond coming down. He didn't say to you. But I understand that the project will be something similar to what we have at Sandy Gully. It's concreted from Big Pond straight to here to the sea. So this is open up the whole stuff for them. So those of us who get inconvenient at Big Pond, in a little while, it's going to be something of history. The only problem we have is that a lot of our citizens that have built shops and business places on the riverbank in Bannister, Davis come down, got me in trouble. Because we advised them years ago, you can't build on the Gully Bank, whether shop or house, because there's a big project coming. I have no intention of allowing a few trespassers to threaten the livelihood of others. They were told, and I'm sure people are waiting to get big compensation for shop and houses in Gully Bank. They were warned long before not to put it there. So the issue World Bank doesn't want to do the project with all these houses along the Gully Bank. And the World Bank gonna expect us, as when I was minister came out, for the government to remove and compensate those persons on the Gully Bank. I don't see government have money to compensate over 200 people who build on the Gully Bank illegally. And we asked them before. So I do hope that those on the Gully Bank who capture will think seriously about others. Start relocate and allow us to deal with the problem in Big Pond, that the flooding. We haven't had any serious flooding over the last 2 years apart from burial and the other rain last year because of the expansion we did in Big Pond. We now have another phase to make sure that we can go another 20 feet down to absorb the water. And I spoke to the Prime Minister and NWA and the Commissioner of Land to see if we can purchase a small lot at the corner of Sylvester Drive South to expand the pond and to go down under 20 feet, and that would hold us until JSIF and the World Bank and the government of Jamaica can continue the project. Today, on behalf of the people of Southwest St. Catherine, I want to thank the government of Jamaica, JSIF and the World Bank for considering us and for the work they have done here. Thank you all very much for helping us.
A word to the wise is sufficient. It's a very reasonable ask, and you ask it long time. So remember, do your part so that the rest can benefit. All right, partnerships is what this is all about. And now I'm going to ask you to look at the screen for a video presentation before the Prime Minister speaks.
The Big Pond Myton Gully Drainage Improvement Project is a sub-project of the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, the DVRP. This sub-project is being executed by the JSIF and forms part of a loan agreement between the Government of Jamaica and the World Bank. We saw this initiative as crucial to the safeguarding of the people's homes in the flood-prone areas of Big Pond Myton Gully and adjoining communities in Old Harbour, St. Catherine. For decades, these areas have been adversely affected by natural disasters due to the poor drainage system. We are appealing to community members and other commuters traversing the area to exercise care in protecting the environment by keeping it clear of garbage and debris. The new drainage system will benefit approximately 38,000 persons, comprising citizens, business operators, and other commuters from neighboring parishes. This initiative will see us implementing a proper drainage system which will significantly reduce flooding in the Big Pond Myton Gully area and the Old Harbour community in general. Additionally, the JSIF will be hosting a series of training workshops in the areas of maintenance and risk management for all stakeholders. It will also have a tremendous impact on improving the quality of life for these community members. Some of our key partners are the National Works Agency, NWA, and the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA. We at JSIF strive to reduce any form of risk factors by investing heavily in our communities across Jamaica.
JSIF, investing for community development.
The Big Pond.
So you got a little background there, and you see what is. And of course, we recognize how much better it can be when we all play our part. Prime Minister, sir, I see you looking with a studied look. And I'm saying to myself, you're thinking about the Big Pond. And what the Member of Parliament said about the people on the bank. Because I hear, you talk and you tell people, come off of the Gully Bank, I hear you. But I also think you're thinking of something else. You know what that is? That simply is that when the people come off of the Gully Bank, you'll have less of a headache. No, it's a serious thing. because you talk about it all the time. But ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure this time to invite the Prime Minister to address this gathering. The Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, will now talk with us.
Thank you, Auntie Faye. And thank you for adjusting the mic appropriately. I am standing here on the protocols established, and it's good to see all you nice and decent people gathered. Yesterday, I had a ceremony similar to this, where we handed over a special piece of equipment to the forestry department. This piece of equipment will allow us, when we are building out our infrastructure, not to cut down the trees, but we are able to relocate them. So we can take them up by the root and take them to somewhere else. And this increases the survivability of the tree when it is transplanted elsewhere, up to 90%. Now, that piece of equipment costs 76 million Jamaican dollars. That $76 million, I'm sure others are looking on and say, that could have repaired a school. That could have repaired a road. That could have built a few houses. That could have done a water supply project. Yes. I start at that point because, you know, in about 1991, 1992, in the early 90s, there was a very popular Minister of Works, and he was supervising the expansion of Hope Road in Kingston, in the Ligani area, which would have included the construction of bus bays and right at the Ligani post office. And there was a massive guango tree there. I'm looking at the audience and seeing the people who are 30 years old or older. They might recall this. The younger ones may not. And the government took the decision to cut down the guango tree. Guango tree would have been there for decades. And, you know, people took it personally. This conflict between the built environment and the natural environment. People want to be able to take public transportation with certain ease and comfort, but we also want to have the shade and beauty of our trees. So we have run into this several times before. The latest one would have been when we were doing the improvement works along Constant Spring Road, and there were a certain number of trees that we had to remove. Those trees were the nesting place for a flock of parakeets that lived in them. And again, it created a challenge for the government. Government is not only about the concrete and steel. All right? Government is about the holistic development of the person. And the holistic development of the person involves also taking into account the natural habitat in which man lives. So the government is a steward of your affairs, not just your economic affairs, not just your social affairs, but we are stewards of your environmental affairs. And we have to balance all of these together. So, just for note, the government is spending over $45 billion in the Spark program on roads. We spend close to another $5 billion on the REACH program and other programs. But we only spent $76 million on this piece of equipment. So put it into context. I'm giving you that information as citizens, as taxpayers, who will have to judge the government's allocative decisions as to whether or not it made sense. There are some persons who would disagree with it, but I think most Jamaicans would appreciate that it is important that we pay attention to the preservation and protection of the environment. Now, I segue very quickly into the Myton Gully. This gully is a naturally existing feature of the geography of this area. We came here and saw this gully. We came here and we decided that we're going to build in proximity to this gully. We came here and we put in a road that traverses the natural waterway of the gully. It's not nature that troubled us, it's we go and trouble nature. But man, as the steward of the environment, has the ability, has the knowledge to build out the environment in a way to preserve the natural environment and increase our comfort, our convenience, and our efficiency. What existed here before, which was built many decades, possibly in the 70s or 80s, was not sufficient. My understanding is that it had one box culvert that would not have been able to carry the volume of water securely across the road and into the retention area. And the reason for that is that as we have built roads, these become flat, non-porous surfaces that carry water. As we build more houses with roofs on them that create runoffs that run onto these roads, and as we pave more areas which prevent the percolation of water naturally into the soil, what happens? The water has to be channeled. And so what was built several decades ago to account for the water runoff then was not sufficient to account for the water runoff now because of the building that we have been doing in the area. We are building for our convenience. Yes, we are building our houses, we are building our roads. But as we are doing that, we are also creating greater inconvenience because there is more water. But there was also another issue. There is also more waste. And so the blockage of that single culvert was not primarily an issue of the volume of water going in, but also plastics, other household debris that would end up creating a congestion at that inlet and outlet point. So man, in trying to get his own convenience, is also not just destroying nature, but also inconveniencing himself. So it requires us then to think in a broader way about development. So it's not just about building my house and me feeling comfortable in my house, or building a road for me to feel comfortable to drive on, or taking the decision that, you know, I can't find land anywhere else and therefore I'm going to build on the gully bank. We all have to start to think about how we protect the environment, not just for our personal convenience, but how do we protect the environment for the benefit of the community, but more than that, for the benefit of generations yet to come. It is a duty that each and every one of us here has, that we have to start to think in this way. Yes, I understand, as your Member of Parliament, Everard Warmington, has pointed out, that there are persons living on the Gully bank. And yes, I can understand why that is the case. We all have to live. We all need somewhere to live. But increasingly we are seeing that our private decisions about where we choose to live and how we choose to live is having serious public, national, and global consequences, which comes back to threaten our own shelter. Because that gully bank on which you have chosen to live, it is not safe. And the waste from where you live that gets into the gully, that blocks the culvert, creates the flooding issue that in turn threatens where you live. So government has to take the lead in this. Government has to be far more enlightened in its development policy. It has to be far more comprehensive. But government has to be far more understanding of the dynamics, the social and economic dynamics that you face. So what has this government been doing? The first order of business is to create the economy that generates the revenues to do projects like this. When you have no economy and you're not generating any revenues, you will not get projects like this. As I was driving in and listening to the radio, a radio commentator was acknowledging that the government has purchased this piece of equipment that will allow it to move the trees. And he was saying, it's not a big thing for most people, but it is an important thing. And then he went on to say, the only question I have is, why did it take the government so long? Why did it take the government so long to deal with Myton Gully? Mr. Sweeney pointed out that for 10 years this has been a concern brought to the Jamaica Social Investment Fund. Why? And it's a simple answer. The less money you have in your budget, the longer it takes for projects to get done. It's a simple answer. So again this morning on my way in, I listened to a caller in Hopewell, Hanover, and the caller was very angry that his road is in a terrible state of disrepair, like many roads across Jamaica. And every time you drop into a pothole, you don't want to hear nothing about why and any reason. You just want that road fixed. And I understand that. That is what the government is there to do, to just get the road fixed. But there is a certain reality that as electors, you have to account, appreciate, absorb, and internalize in your own analysis of the performance of the government. Jamaica has over 27,000 kilometers of roads. Half of them are in a state of disrepair. Those roads were not built in 10 years. They were not built in 20 years. They were not built in 30 years, 40 years. Those roads were built, some of them, as far back as 100 years ago. So you cannot expect that every single bad road is going to be fixed in 1 decade. What the public does not know, however, is how many roads has been actually fixed in the decade. What you hear is of the roads not fixed, but you don't hear of the roads fixed. What you hear is of the communities that don't have water. What you don't hear is of the communities that have gotten water. What you hear of is the places that are flooded out because of poor drainage. But what you don't hear of is that we have fixed this problem that has existed for decades in the Myton Gully, spending over 370 million Jamaican dollars to expand the waterway with 4 culverts and to pave the invert for over 200 meters. Yes. 38,000 people who live in this area who would normally be affected, plus all the traffic that moves through, no longer has this inconvenience. But nobody is going to credit the government with that performance. It is the reality of our politics and the way in which we conduct our social and political affairs. So my job is to constantly bring into the public domain the work of the government. Because, you know, for years we have been programmed to be suspicious of government, to be disbelieving of government. We have been programmed for governments that don't perform. That's how it has been. And so what they call the confirmation bias that exists within people is to believe that government is not performing, even when confronted with the facts. And the fact is that no other administration in the history of Jamaica has spent more on roads and building of highways than this administration has in the last 9 years. None. But having said that, I am not gloating. I am not bragging. I am stating a fact. And as I have stated that fact, I will also say there is still much, 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 much more to be done. The problem of the road in Hopewell not being repaired or anywhere else in Jamaica genuinely could not only be ascribed to the current government. The problem of the community in Stirling Castle or wherever it was that I went the other day, where I was confronted by a lady who said her community didn't have water, could not only be ascribed to this government. In other words, as I pointed out in Parliament some time ago, if you build a road, the road cannot last forever. And I think it is in the consciousness of Jamaicans that when you build a road, it will last forever. A road has a lifespan of between 7 and 15 years, depending on the kind of road you build. You can extend that by another 5 or even 10 years, depending on the level of maintenance that you do on the road. Now, if after 7 years you don't do any maintenance on the road, and then the potholes start to emerge, and then the road itself deteriorates and fall apart, and then when you reach year 20 now, and it's a different government in place, you start to just blame this government. This government is responsible, but it is not its fault. So, as the government now, I take responsibility for the roads. And how do I do that? First thing, we go and we do a proper accounting for the road. Because before, people would call about their road and you couldn't even find it on a map. It is on no register. Nobody knows about the road. it's a dispute sometimes. Sometimes you say, this road needs to be fixed. And when you go to the MP say, no, this is a parish council road. And when you go to the parish council, they say, no, this is a NWA road. And then sometimes you go to the parish council and say, this road needs to be fixed. And the parish council says, no, there's a farm road. Worse if you live in a subdivision. You go all over and they tell you, no, we don't have that road on any gazette or any register. That is an orphan road. A road that was laid in a subdivision but not handed over to any authority. So that's the first thing we have done. We are still in the process of properly documenting the road. And as an aside, we're going to have another program to ensure that all the roads are properly named. Because if you look on one map, one road is spelled another way. You go to another map, it's spelled another way. And that all the addresses are properly unified. So that is a special program that will come out of the proper documentation of our roads. Once that is done, then we do a thorough assessment of all the roads. Meaning, what is the state of disrepair of the roads? And then once you have that established, then you can put a ranking of priorities. The next step now is to secure a budgetary allocation that can, over a period of a decade, repair all the critical and priority roads. So I need to reorient the minds of the Jamaican citizens that you're not going to repair all the roads today or this year. It's going to take you at least a decade to repair roads that have not been repaired in 50, 60 years, some of them, or ever, since they were built. And what you need to look for and hold governments to account for is not what they fix today, but what is the program that they have put in place so that every week or every year or every month there is a consistent repairing of roads. And to date, the only government that has been able to do that out of its own resources is this administration with the Spark program. $40 billion has been allocated, and that will do just over 600 roads across Jamaica. We have had to put $5 billion on it because you can't lay roads without putting in pipes, because some areas you have to connect the water. It takes a little time to go through all the processes so that there is no issue with any accusation of corruption. We want to ensure that every dollar that is allocated to the road is on the road and not in somebody's pocket. And so there are some steps and processes that we go through. So I heard, that caller saying, well, every week them tell me say the road will come this week and it'll come that week and it not come. Sometimes that's how it is. Sometimes the things are at procurement and all kinds of things happen and we have to follow the procurement rules. Sometimes somebody object and say, no, they didn't do the process right and we have to start it over again. The law is blind to you waiting for that road. The public servant who has to do all the documentation, them say, them not go prison. Them a make sure all the I's are dotted and T's crossed. And the public needs to appreciate this, that there is a process that we go through, because it is usable and the very public who will turn around and cost the governments and the politicians that they are not managing your funds appropriately. It's a dynamic that I have to manage. Having been without the road for so long, you're frustrated. But I have to make sure that when the road is fixed, it is properly fixed. We have to develop speed. So the public servant has to figure out how to move faster, perfect the compliance requirements, and take into consideration that man who called from Western Hanover about his road, that we consider you, sir, in as much as we are trying to comply. So I thought I would just use this handing over as a platform to have this conversation with my Jamaican brothers and sisters about where we are. Today is a different day in Jamaica. Today is not a promise about pothole-free by 2003. An empty promise that was not backed by a budget. Today is not about the government expanding its built environment at the expense of the natural environment, because we have taken the steps, a small step albeit, to be able to preserve our trees in the environment. So this is a different Jamaica, fundamentally, from the Jamaica that existed before. And yes, you sometimes may not see the change. But if I were to tell you that Jamaica has planted in the last 5 years 3 million trees, you would say, what? I don't see it. But you drive past the tree every day and would know that we planted it. When you go on the east-west highway and you look on the right side when you're coming in, all of those trees that you see there, we planted them. And we have now given a directive to plant another 3 million trees over the next 5 years. Public would know this, or would be even concerned. And when we're doing our road projects, we took a decision in 2024 that all our road corridors will have a tree canopy in proximity to them to help with the cooling of our city. These are all decisions that we have taken. So you are living in a different Jamaica created by a different government. A government that understands, a government that has a comprehensive plan for development, a government that cares, but more than anything else, a government that has the wherewithal to create the funds to deliver the benefits that you need. I close by saying that in everything we do, we must have faith. For a long time, we have been disappointed. The development and the benefits have seemed that, they take so long to come. But 10 years ago, nobody would ever believe that we could stand and say the murder rate in Jamaica is 44% less than what it was a year before. But mind you, this is the first time since the 1980s that you're having 3 consecutive years of decline in the murder rate. So it's not a one-year thing. We had a decline in 2023. We had a decline that was like 8 or 7%. And we had a decline in 2024 that was like 19%. And now we are at 44%. It's a totally different Jamaica. There are those who don't want to believe it, It irks them, it rankles them that this is happening because they are so used to the negative news. So there is a lag time for people to understand it and to appreciate it. But the facts are the facts. And when I speak to you, I give you the facts. You do with it what you want to do, but I give you the facts. You wrestle with your emotions, but you can't overcome the facts. So you have to have faith. And, they say that faith is the substance of things hoped for. Right? Complete it for me. And the evidence of things unseen. So I know every Jamaican is hoping for their roads. Every Jamaican is hoping for their drains and gully to be repaired. Every Jamaican is hoping to own their house. Every Jamaican is hoping for a peaceful country. But we are giving you the evidence of it. This is evidence of the things you hope for. This investment in Myton Gully of $326 million. It's evidence of it. The reduction in crime, evidence of it. The reduction in unemployment, evidence of it. The reduction of the national debt, evidence of it. 10 budgets and no new taxes, evidence of it. It's the reality. So, I leave you with this thought. Choose Jamaica. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. It's not the first time I've been in a setting where you've reminded people to choose Jamaica. And it's important that we really think broadly about Jamaica and choose Jamaica. You know, it's important. Sir, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to almost the end of the program, but I have to give you a few notes. First of all, we talk about the Myton Gully. I don't know how many of you know that there is a Myton family, and the role that they have played and the legacy that they have left in farming and education and business and entrepreneurship. And so if you live in a community and hear a name, go do a little research and find out about the people and the role they played in helping to build the people. Not just here, but the whole of Old Harbour. Look up that name, do a little research on it. You're a Myton? Wonderful. There's a Myton in the gathering. All right. All right. So having people I name, you're asked to remain in this area because that could be a problem outside there as well with safety. So everyone except the 5 people I named. But before I get there, Prime Minister, we want to thank you for being here. We know your busy schedule. Member of Parliament, our Custos, we want to thank you. All specially invited guests, the JSIF team led by Managing Director Omar Sweeney, the members, the representative from the World Bank and the team, all persons from the community. We want to thank you all, everyone who made this occasion. There is a group here too I want to acknowledge, and that is the All Access team led by Norris Haynes. We want to thank you for everything. Now, here we go. These are the persons I'd like to go now for the cutting of the ribbon. Prime Minister, Member of Parliament, Mr. Sweeney, Custos, I'm going to ask you, and our rep from the World Bank. So, if you could just the JSIF, they are there and they
Andrew.
Oh, sorry.
Ready?
Come say here, come a little bit. Right.
1 million.
Yeah. Look. Everybody look this way now, please. Come a little closer, Mr. Hill.
Richard.
is all done by higher elevations. In the big pond area, the water is flowing with 2 feet. So what you see here is a bridge. We did 60 meters on the upstream, 60 meters on the downstream of concrete pavements and everything else. So the retaining walls actually funnel the water. And then we did 100 meters of earthquake works, rehabilitation earthquake works, to ensure that the water doesn't. So what would happen before is that you would have had a 60 before this area was even if it was events we found here.
So before, what used to happen is that water would come, overflow, and would make the passage of traffic here hazardous. And in fact, as you have said, impossible. Now, even with extreme weather, traffic would still be passable and without much hazard, because you have widened the flow through 4 times over. You have one culvert, now you have 4, very wide. You have put in a new approach to the bridge, so it's an entirely resurfaced and wider approach. You've put in sidewalks and these very thick retaining walls, and indeed you have done the invert and the retaining walls for a new Gully. Excellent.